Good morning. On this Friday, we look at Ezekiel 24 through 26. And again, we have images that just, aren't very pretty. God says that, Israel will be like a pot boiling meat until it's utterly destroyed. And not only Israel, but also the people of Israel. And they're not just going to be well done. You're going to cook it until it's completely destroyed. It says the meat will be completely destroyed, and a pot full of rust will be heated until all of its impurities will be burned off. So, thinking about the rust in the pot in relationship to, the unfaithful people, those who are worshiping idols and everything, all of those are going to be gone. It's going to be pure and clean. And so, the remnant will still be there. And, so it's, we have to kind of look a little bit that way, but it's going to be, everybody's going to be in the pot. And it's like I mentioned before that, the good, those who are faithful, are going to be exiled the same as those who are not faithful to God. It's in a world that there's so much chaos going on. We all experience the good and the bad, and sometimes we can look and see some people that we would say that are really evil people, and they're, doing quite well. And I can think of some leaders of some of the countries in the world that, that are that way. But, we all are going to go through this. And so God is saying through Ezekiel to the people of Jerusalem that, it's the cleansing will come, and it's not going to be easy. To be in a pot of burning water, you're going to see all the chaos. You're going to be, your city is going to be sieged, and this is still upcoming. That Nebuchadnezzar is going to come and lay siege to Jerusalem. It hasn't happened yet. It hasn't fallen yet. He's still talking. This chapter 24 starts in the 9th year on the 10th month, and we read earlier in this book, it's kind of during the 11th or 13th year of Ezekiel that Jerusalem falls. And so this is still a ways before that time. But things are going to be happening. And then starting in verse 15, it's a really hard thing for Ezekiel. God says that, you're to prophesy in the morning, and in the evening your wife is going to die. The apple of your eye, the one who brings joy to you, but God says, I don't want you to put on mourning clothes. I don't want you to, it says, you shall not mourn nor weep, nor shall your tears run down. Sigh, but not too loudly, and make no mourning for the dead. Bind your turban, put on your sandals. How do you do that? But this is what Ezekiel was to do, and Ezekiel was to do it as an example for the rest of the people of Israel. And, don't cover your upper lip, don't eat the bread of mourners. So I spoke in the morning, and at evening my wife died, and the next morning, Ezekiel says, I did as I was commanded. And the people were surprised. The people were wondering, well, what's going on here? Why are you acting in such a manner? And this is what the word of the Lord was to me, he tells them. And goes on with that. And he said, that you shall not mourn, you shall not cover your upper lip, and Ezekiel tells the people that he is to be a sign for them, so that when they are exiled from Jerusalem, when Jerusalem falls, when it's captured, and the people are all taken away, it's to realize that, this has come upon them because of who they are, and they need to just to get on with life. And in a way, God is saying to Ezekiel that, I am faithful to you, in and through all of these things. And I've gone through this a couple times, and and then there's a time when toward verse 26, 27 that when something happens, then on that day your mouth will be opened and you'll be able to speak. So, and I looked through here, but I couldn't see where it said that God, Ezekiel would not be able to speak, but here it's evidently going to happen that Ezekiel's mouth is going to be closed up, and the people aren't listening anyway. So maybe God just figures that, well, they're not hearing it, so whatever. But on the day when I take them from their stronghold, from their joy and their glory and all of that, on that day, one who has escaped will come and tell you the news, and on that day you'll be able again to speak. So it's after the fall of Jerusalem. I mean, Ezekiel has been bringing God's message of warning, and they've been ignoring it. And so at some point in time, the fall will happen. And then at that point in time again, the word of the Lord will come to Ezekiel. Chapters 25 and 26 deal with a lot of the judgments that God lays against the Moabs, the Edomites, the Philistines, and the city of Tyre. And the Assyrians, the Tyre had, they had come and they had warred against Israel, and so had Moab and Edom and the Philistines. They were battling. I mean, we remember stories of David and Goliath. He was a big man in the Philistine army, and there was continual warring, and it was over land and over land rights and who gets to live where, and all of those things. And we saw that happening, well, we didn't see it, but we read about it happening as the United States was explored and settled, and the battles that go on, and still today there's arguments over so much that and what's going on with Russia and Ukraine. It's Russia wants the productive land, more land. What they have isn't enough, so they're looking for more. It's an age-old story. We saw it happen in World War I and in World War II, and we just see this not being content with what we have, and I remember reading, I don't remember if it was in Jeremiah or Isaiah or. It was back in one of the Kings or Chronicles in the spring of the year when kings went to battle, and then King David decided to stay home, and that's when he had, but it was just, this is the thing that happens, it's just commonplace. But God says there's going to be judgments against these other countries for continuing to battle against my people Israel, for warring against them. These things will happen. Like verse 8 of chapter 25, thus says the Lord, because Moab said, the house of Judah is like all nations, therefore I will lay open the flank, under the, and they're going to attack. They're going to, Judah is just another nation, like all other nations, except that it was God's chosen nation, God's chosen people, and those chosen people of God were to be examples for others. But others, they didn't see faithfulness in Judah and the Israelites, and they kept inflicting it. They kept putting their gods in front of them and doing everything else that way too. But so Moab and the Philistines and Edomites were all going to be within that same defeat by Nebuchadnezzar. Nebuchadnezzar was the king that was going to come and capture Jerusalem, and then he would, after that, when Jerusalem fell, in the 11th year. So chapter 26 starts in the 11th year, the first day of the month. The Lord came to me, and the word of the Lord came. And this is when Jerusalem fell, and so then Nebuchadnezzar then starts marching against Tyre. And so that Tyre will have that same destiny as Jerusalem, as Judah, that it would be, warred against and captured by King Nebuchadnezzar. And a part of this was God's punishment upon those other lands for their warring and battling against his people. And we have, there's some words of mourning and sorrow over Tyre, and as it falls and everything in there too, but it continues to be showing God's displeasure with his people and with the people that war on his people. So on the people that are causing his people, I mean, these other nations, with their idol worship and with everything else going on, were not good examples for the Israelites in leading them astray. And we've read about, woe to the shepherd who leads the flock astray, woe to the leader who, isn't faithful to God. And we see that happening so often in the world. But God is always faithful to us.